I've been anticipating the full release of Delusion for a couple months now, and after completing my first playthrough, it has easily secured a spot among my favorite RPGs of all time, going right alongside Elden Ring and Cyberpunk. Delusion starts you off in a prison cell as a prisoner, where you'll be given a rather vague rundown of the game's general story and prompted to select your starting stats, which are admittedly very lackluster, but honestly, I appreciate the simplicity of it. To sum up the story without spoilers, basically, a couple hundred years ago, humans abused the gods in their pursuit of power, leading to a catastrophic event that nearly destroyed the entire world. All that was left as a result of this event was a series of floating islands scattered across the planet, with the ones we inhabit being the Oniric Isles. Flash forward to the present, and humans are now trying to repeat history, so it's our job to prevent that from happening. I've gotta say that I was pleasantly surprised with the depth and quality of the storytelling, world building, and lore. In terms of the actual story, I was slightly disappointed by the lack of narrative choices. They exist, but there just aren't many of them in the game. I also feel like the length of the game was rather short. My playthrough concluded at roughly 16 hours, and about 10 of those were spent on main story quests. All that being said, the storytelling was still amazing, and it's very obvious that they decided to focus more on quality rather than quantity. Almost every single NPC you can interact with offers several dialogue options, ranging from their own background to questions about the town you're currently passing through, or even a quest you can embark on. Dialogue in this game is incredibly well written, and it always offers you a great amount of insight to guide you on your journey or inform your decisions moving forward. There was never a time when I felt like the dialogue I was reading was completely useless or way too confusing to understand. It truly had me gripped for most of my playthrough thanks to unforeseen plot twists at every corner, as well as foreshadowed events and characters finally coming to fruition. I shit you not, I sat there at the end of the game for 20 minutes just trying to decide what ending I would choose, because everything I did up until that point left such a major impact on me that I really wanted to weigh the pros and cons of each choice to decide if it's actually what I wanted. And I know you're probably thinking, oh, it's just a game, there's really no need to be so dramatic, Slop Daddy. Well, first of all, fuck you! But also, in a sense you are right, because at the end of the day, my choice in the game has no impact on the real world. But when you have a story like this that holds nothing back, and is so incredibly well written, it seriously makes you debate your choices as if you were making a real life moral decision. When it comes to world building, this game is almost as expansive as your mother's vagina. Upon starting your journey, you'll be greeted by a giant freaking castle, as well as the silhouettes of several other islands in the distance. I don't know an exact number for how large the map is in total, but just take my word for it when I say that it's very, very massive. The Oniric Isles are comprised of 3 main islands, with the central region being Hallowshire, the east being the Clockwork Kingdom, and to the west you have the Endless Realm. There's also one more zone that you do reach towards the end of the game, but I'm not going to talk about it due to potential lore spoilers. Not only do each of these regions have their own unique theme, such as the Endless Realm being a real spooky dark forest, and the Clockwork Kingdom being all steampunk and shit, but they are all filled to the brim with content. Something I really appreciate about Delusion is that there is never a dull moment in this game. Around every single corner, there's either monsters to fight, a house to pillage, a dungeon to conquer, or a town to explore. And sometimes you'll stumble upon hidden or locked doors that can be activated using torches, candles, or levers scattered around the general area. They just did an incredible job at making the world feel alive. There was never a single moment in this game where I felt like I was just wandering aimlessly or endlessly, and there was always a cool landmark to explore, whether it be far off on a distant hill or right in front of my face. There's also player houses, but they don't offer much besides the convenience of crafting stations in one consolidated area and a little bit of customizability. Pair all this with the amazing art style, the retro aesthetic, and the mesmerizing sound design, and you get such an incredible and unique world to explore. It would often give me the same feeling as playing Subnautica or the Outer Wilds for the first time, because it can be so captivating, and you'll simply just find yourself caught up in the beauty of the islands and all that they have to offer. As a bonus, there are absolutely no loading screens in this game, with the exception of the occasional 1 or 2 second game freeze here and there when you're loading new terrain and structures. But every single door you open, city you enter, or dungeon you raid is all located within one game world, and you will never have to spend a significant amount of time waiting for the game to load. If you like what you're seeing so far, consider hitting that like and subscribe, and I might even give you a really passionate kiss on the lips as I look into your eyes and tell you how much I Unfortunately, I do have 2 minor complaints about the open world. Number 1 is that there is a massive lack of NPCs outside of the main towns or major points of interest. I think it would be nice to see some more people just roaming the roads or chilling in houses, even if they don't always give me a new quest. Speaking of questing, I'm glad to say that this game has some pretty engaging quest lines. There was never any bullshit about go here and kill these monsters for a 10% chance that this item drops, or run across the map to retrieve this item and bring it back to me for literally no reason at all, and I'll give you 6 schmeckles. There was always a lore reason for what you were doing. There was always expansive dialogue options in case you wanted more information, and there was always events leading up to every single quest line that made it feel like I was actually playing a role and influencing a dynamically changing world. And in my experience, they would tend to range anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. Back on the topic of complaining, my other complaint is that although the world is beautiful and there's so many amazing sights to see, there simply just isn't enough of a reward for actually exploring, which could really be a major turnoff for players who don't want to waste time gawking at the scenery and want an actual reason to stray off the main path. Treasure chests mainly consist of easily obtainable materials and items that can be found in the world, crafted at an alchemy station or purchased at a vendor, such as ammunition, ores, and potions. Occasionally you'll get a key or a unique item like the scope, but for the most part, the loot is just random garbage that, as I said, can be obtained several other ways, and it just makes finding treasure chests feel completely worthless and unrewarding. As a matter of fact, the loot system overall could use some changes, because not only do you hardly ever get anything worthwhile from chests, but to make matters worse, enemies can only drop consumable items. There's a very small selection of gear between weapons, armor, equipment, and spells, and most of it is obtained mainly from upgrading gear you already have or purchasing it from a shop. Also, for some reason, enemies take forever to drop their loot. It seems like it's tied to their death animation, so whenever you kill an enemy, you're kinda just chilling there for like 3 whole seconds, just waiting for their loot to drop, and it started to get really frustrating very quickly. Sticking with the topic of enemies, another gripe I have with this game is the combat. Simply put, it is far too easy. And not like casual easy, so that anybody can pick up the game and enjoy it. No, it's just mind-numbing how easy it is. Every single enemy in the game, without fail, can be beaten by simply attacking, backing up, attacking, and repeating this until they're dead. They get staggered by every single hit, attack extremely slowly, do very negligible damage, and lose aggro faster than you can say, Raid Shadow Legend. I'm not joking when I say that I beat the final boss, aka the last enemy you ever fight, aka the encounter that this game's entire story led up to, in 5 whole freaking power attacks with an Iberian Greatsword, which is not even the highest upgrade possible. I mean, look, I'm no game design prodigy or anything, but I think that just straight up buffing their stats across the board would go a very long way. Make them deal more damage, increase their health, double their attack and movement speed, and for the love of Pageth, cure their dementia while you're at it. I mean, you can literally just run straight past these guys and they go back to jerking off 2 seconds later. Moving on from all that negativity, I gotta admit that I'm a real big fan of the lack of hand-holding. Something you'll understand pretty quickly is that a little bit of reading goes a very long way in Dread Delusion. There are absolutely no quest markers. You have to actively engage with the world to fill out your map. Convenient fast travel is non-existent, with the only options being teleportation chambers or a skyship, and potions actually matter, because health and mana don't automatically regenerate, and your stamina slowly loses its maximum capacity over time. This type of gameplay certainly won't be everybody's cup of tea, but when you come from titles such as Skyrim or Elden Ring with tons of convenience mechanics, it makes you approach the game in a rather unique way. It really incentivizes memorizing and exploring the world so that you can learn the most efficient ways to travel, as well as utilizing typically useless items like beds to restore your health, stamina, and mana and pass time. I do, however, strongly dislike the lack of a save game system. I understand that they want you to really sit there and think about your choices, and they want to avoid save scumming, but I think it's just a silly design choice. Sometimes I simply just want to hop off the game and pick it right back up where I left it. It's not enjoyable in the slightest to lose progress and be reverted to my last checkpoint simply because I didn't reach an autosave before getting off. And don't even get me started on this fucking lockpick system, because that's when I'm gonna get really freaking angry. Who in their right goddamn mind decided that it would be a good idea to put lockpicking entirely behind fucking RNG? This is literally the dumbest design choice I've ever seen in my life, straight up. And pair this with the fact that lockpick capacity is capped based on your agility skill. It leaves me dumbfounded to even imagine how this was put into the game for more than 5 minutes. I do not care in the slightest if you can raise your lockpicking skill with gear and attributes, because at the end of the day, it's still a 50-50 chance no matter which way you frame it. You either get it or you don't. It doesn't matter if I have a 99% chance to pick the lock, because there's still a 1% chance that I will fail that lock 10 times in a row, and now I'm locked out of content because the game decided to fuck me over and it broke all of my lockpicks. Please, just implement a real lockpicking system, because what we have now is just stupid. On a more positive note, the game in general feels really good to play. Movement is super fast, and every action you take, whether it's attacking or interacting with an object, is very responsive. It honestly never felt sluggish to play in any capacity, and the performance is pretty stable besides the final zone of the game where I'll get occasional hiccups. It's got a few bugs here and there, but nothing game-breaking that I've experienced personally. Overall, Dread Delusion is an incredibly ambitious indie title with admittedly quite a few flaws, but these are easily forgotten thanks to its outstanding storytelling, world building, and beauty. It doesn't have the depth of Baldur's Gate 3 or The Witcher, but it makes up for it with a super unique art style and an unforgettable gameplay experience. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.